Okay, the next step is to take your inner fork tube and you want to slide it into place. The best way to do this is to fully compress, fully compress the fork. There we go. We don't have this tightened down right now for a reason. Next thing is you got your valve here. Now we are going to replace, we're not replacing the O-rings because they actually seem quite good, but this seal here, or this gasket, the Pivot Works kit came with a new one of those, so okay. And then this screws into your inner fork tube. We're going to see if we can get a shot. Yeah, you can see the threads in here. Make sure you've got it nice and clean. And I'm actually trying to make sure I don't have any more of those blue chunks. I actually cleaned it out pretty thorough, but never can be too clean. Alright. Okay, so, and you need to get this on those seals, or on those threads. But first thing you want to do, which a lot of people don't do or they skip, and actually the book calls for this, is you want to put some Loctite on here. And this is that's probably more than enough, actually. This is something that's called for in the book. So go ahead and work that in there. Okay. And again, this actually screws into the inner fork tube. And it can be a bit tricky there. You have to make sure you have it seated all the way. Now this one you're going to want to tighten down to your recommended specs, but I'm actually going to do it with an impact because otherwise you need a special tool that slides down into the inner fork tube that actually holds it in place while you turn this. You can't hold it, there's no way, it's all the way in the bottom. You have to have, it's a longer tool, so. This actually gets tightened down to, it's 40 foot-pounds. We're going to use the impact. We'll check it here. So I'm going to go ahead and make sure this is tight, and then we'll move on to the next step. Stay tuned. Okay, moving on to the next step. Next step, assuming that everything went well with your change there with your seals. Now we're going to put in some fork oil. Now the stock recommended is 140 millimeter from the top of it being fully compressed. Motion Pro makes a nice little tool for this. It's 25 bucks. I probably should have got it, but I've never used them in the past. They didn't have them available, you know, until well, it's probably been, I don't know. It's been 10 years or so since I've had a dirt bike, so I don't think they had them then. But I just use a set of digital calipers And then I've got this set. I'm actually going to run mine a little bit more oil, running them with 110 millimeter. And basically I'm using this portion here to measure. So I've got this set at 106, and then I set on top here until it hits the very bottom of this. So pour the fork oil in. You want to use the, I'd use the manufacturer's recommended, which in Yamaha's case is 5-weight. I would stick with that if I were you. I mean, a lot of guys play with 7-weight, 2.5, you know, all that. One thing we did forget to put in, not we, or rather I did, put the push rod back in. Seen that oil. That's why I noticed that, because all that oil is going down there so easily. So if you're doing it this method, it's ideal to have a flashlight look down in there to see about where you're at. But this first fill up is not critical. And you want to do this without the spring or any of that on. You just want the inner push rod. I don't remember, they call it something else, but we'll call it the inner push rod for now. So we've got it about where we need to be. So what we're going to do is lift just the intersection, slowly lift it and push it down. What we're doing right now is we're getting all the air out of the system. And you can feel it's really easy to push up and down right now. And this gets all the air out, and it also puts the oil down into the other chamber. So the book recommends, I think, about 10 times. I honestly like to do it about 20 times. And if you're doing it right, you'll feel it's harder to pull up and to push down. Like right now, it's getting harder to pull up, and you can hear the air bubbles, but it's really easy to push down. So I know I'm not even close. Hear those going into the other chamber. So I'm going to continue doing this about however many times it takes, and then I'll show you the next step. Don't assume you're done yet, because we'll actually have to come back to the oil, but I want to get this first phase done. So stay tuned.